So I'm going to be recording this so that in case you need to reference it later, you can reference it later, okay? Before we get started, before we actually get into the software, we have to do a little setup first. The C drives on these computers, the main hard drive, we can't write to, okay? We can, but if we reboot the computer, then everything goes away when it reboots. And the same thing for the desktop. These aren't protected so that if you save your stuff to it, you come in next class, your stuff may not be there. Typically it is, but I would always back your stuff up at the end of the day. Okay? So we're going to go to the computer. So go to the Start menu and go to Computer. And then on the P drive is where we're going to be saving all of our stuff. Okay? Now, if I go too fast at some point, just pull me back and just say, slow down, you're going too fast.
Are there no servers on these computers anymore?
There are, but these servers are different than those. We're on our own network.
They're like local.
What?
Yeah.
Only here.
Only here. All right, so on the P drive, I want you to make a folder called your last name _ W 2016. Okay. Right inside the 2510, make a work and a source folder. The work folder is where we're going to save all the stuff that we actually work on. So anything we build goes in the work folder, okay? Anything that I give you or anything you find online you're using for reference should go in the source folder, okay? That way you're kind of keeping your stuff separated as to what is important and what is not important. This work folder is very important. If we lose the work folder, we've lost all our work. But if we lose the source folder, who cares about it, okay? But we still have one spot right here on the very start of the P drive where we could just back up everything. Now you'll see these get pretty big. My folder right now, because I have several classes, is already up to 5 gigs. So if it's 759 and you try to back up 5 gigs to your jump drive, it might take 10 minutes or 20 minutes or however long it takes. That way, if I needed to, I could just jump right in here, grab the exact folder that I need, and drop that into my hard drive. And this folder here, my work folder, is 0 because I have nothing in it right now. Okay? So now that we have that, I want you to jump back to the P drive. You can use this little arrow on the left here. And on this P drive, you'll probably see a folder that says 2016, 2016. I want you to delete the 2016 folder. Okay, the 2016 folder that's right here on your P drive, that's your preferences for Maya. If you go home and you installed Maya, you can hit yes if it says, do you want to delete it? If you have Maya open, it won't let you delete it, so you have to close Maya and then do it. At home, you would have your own preferences set up and they're stored inside your documents folder, okay? You can leave those there at home, but here I want to set them up so you can see how do we erase someone else's preferences and then how do we build our own preferences. So once that's deleted, you can go to the Start menu, type in Maya, and open up Maya 2016.
2016 should be a folder.
If there's no folder that says 2016, you don't have. So now that we're inside of Maya, let's do a little tour of the interface. You may get a little screen that pops up that says Maya, new stuff, whatever. You can just hit OK. The top stuff up here is your menu bar. All right, so inside of Maya, there's a menu bar just like you have in every other program, like in Photoshop or Illustrator or whatever. The big difference you're going to find is that Maya has more than one menu bar. So you see up here where this says Mesh and Edit Mesh and Mesh Tools. If I come over here to this little drop down and pick something else, these menu bars change. Okay? So we'll have to be aware of this change that's happening if we change it. And I say go to the Edit Mesh menu, and you're like, this dude's crazy. There is no Edit Mesh menu. It's something else. You have to just switch your menu set over to the other side of that. Okay? So that menu bar will obviously change. The next area here, this is the status bar, and the status bar has a lot of stuff that we'll eventually get into. I want to point out one thing real quick, which is these little arrows. So you see how there's a line with an arrow? If I click the arrow, it expands this stuff out. Now if I expand all of those, you see that stuff actually gets cut off on there. So now we're missing stuff. So again, if I tell you to click on something on the status bar and you don't see it, it might just be either collapsed, so we can't see it, or it might be expanded past the point of being able to actually see that specific item. All right, the next area is the shelf, okay? So you've used Photoshop and Illustrator and InDesign and After Effects and whatever else before. I'm sure there's been a time in that program where you've done something and you had to go to this menu item, then to this menu item, then to that menu item, then maybe to another menu item to grab that specific item that you want. And every time that you want to do that operation, you have to go through all these menus to get to that one item you want to get to. The shelf allows us to save those items. So instead of having to go through and click a bunch of menus to get to that item, we can save that command into our shelf, okay? So that's what we're going to do. So we're going to go to the custom shelf here. So click on the custom tab, and we're going to add stuff to our custom shelf. So you'll see here that it's completely blank. Write down this hotkey on your hotkey sheet because I didn't put it on there. Control plus Shift. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to hold down the Control and Shift key with our left hand. Okay, and is anyone here left-handed? One, okay. I don't know how this affects you and how you work, but I typically keep my left hand on the left side of the keyboard. Okay, and my right hand is typically always on the mouse. If you kind of get into this good workflow of not moving both hands in order to select stuff on the keyboard and do your shortcut keys, you work just a little bit quicker. All right, so Control Shift on the keyboard, and we're going to go under the Edit menu, Delete by Type, and we're going to click one time on the word History, and then let go, and then just click in our area. Okay, so hold Control Shift.
Wait, where's click by type?
Edit, Delete by Type,
Okay.
and then History, and just click on it once, and then just click back into your view area. Okay. Now what that does is it adds a hotkey or a shortcut to the Delete History button. This History button is something we will use multiple times. Throughout everything that we're doing, we may hit the History button like 30 times. So it's nice to have it right there so we don't have to go doot, doot, doot every time. So hold Control Shift again and go to Modify Center Pivot. Okay, it's near the top. All right, so now we have center pivot up there too. So again, just something else that we will be using. All right, keep holding Control Shift. Go to Window Attribute Editor and Window Outliner and add those two into the mix. Window Attribute Editor and Window Outliner. Good so far? What was that? Okay, so we went to, just to show those again, Edit, Delete by Type History, Modify Center Pivot, Window Attribute Editor, Window Outliner. They're right next to each other. And now we're going to hold Control Shift and go to Animation Editor, Graph Editor, and Dope Sheet.
What?
Window Animation Editor, way at the top, and then Graph Editor, and then Dope Sheet.
What does dope sheet do?
The Dope Sheet is for animation stuff. So if we have a keyframe here and a keyframe there, and we just want to grab this keyframe and move it in time, we can just do that. Use the Dope Sheet. Where the Graph Editor is more like After Effects, where we can move it all around. Okay. So this is our start of our shelf. So as you continue in the class, you want to maintain your shelf. If you see that you're constantly going to this menu item and then way down here, it might be a good idea to add that item to your shelf. Okay? There's a lot of times we're going to use the same tools over and over and over again, and you want to be able to get to those tools as quick as possible so you can create the stuff as quickly as possible. So now this shelf says custom. That's kind of like a crappy name. What we should do is rename it so that it's our name. So on the little gear on the far left of our screen, we're going to click the gear right at the end of the shelf and go to the shelf editor. In the shelf editor, we're going to go to where it says rename custom, and we're just going to change the custom to your last name. And then hit enter. Okay, and then you're going to click Save All Shelves. So click Save All Shelves after you've typed in your name. Now, just to show you another use of this, the shelf editor can actually house more than one command per button. Okay, so imagine like in Illustrator, there's one thing that I do where I draw one line, I draw another line, I draw another line, and there's a set of 3 commands that I go to make this shape editable the way I want it to. So instead of me having to go click on this menu, click on this menu, click on this menu, I can take all 3 commands and drop them into one shelf item by going to the command area and typing in or pasting those shell commands. Okay? So it's very cool that we can do that, and that's really one of the reasons that Maya is so powerful and people use it, because it's so editable. Okay?
Is that like using actions?
It's like an action or a macro.
Okay.
Yep. All right, so there's our items here. Now we'll get into actually using those eventually. Now let's look at the left side. So way over here on the left side, these are our select tools, marquee tools, move tools, rotate tools. We're going to avoid using any of these buttons. We want to use the hotkeys, okay? So when we start creating stuff, we'll use the hotkeys and not go over to those menu items. Down here are different layouts. So right now we're in one view, so you see that we have one solid view. If we click the next one, we'll get 4 views. Has anyone had drafting class before? A couple people. Drafting class, one of the things you do is your drawings. You do orthographic drawings, and then you do an isometric drawing. That's what this is. So we have a top view, which is what the object would look like from the top. We have a front view, which is what it looks like from the front. A side view, you get the idea. And then we have a perspective view that we could actually like spin around and see what it looks like from any angle, okay? So sometimes it makes a lot more sense to work in this way. I don't. I like to work with one view, but again, that's going to be your own preference, all right? The next one is this layout, and then we can go back to the default, okay? Way down here on the bottom, these 2 things are for animation. We have a timeline here, so if we were to animate something, we could set keys in the timeline and we could manipulate those keyframes. Way down here on the bottom, we have this thing. I'm going to show this. It says MEL, and MEL stands for Maya Embedded Language, and it's a way for us to code things inside of Maya. So everything that we do, if I go up here and I created a sphere, that's a script. There's a program that runs out there called Sphere that runs. I could also come down here and type in sphere, and Maya would actually create a sphere for me. Okay, now again, that doesn't do much good because there's already a button for it. But imagine that every time I come into Maya, I create a cube and I move it 3 units to the left and I add a cylinder on top of it. I could make a script that would automatically do that. Okay, so that's where this would come in. There's also a repository online where you could download scripts and run those scripts. So one of the cool things that I've always used, like I think the script is from 2003 is how long ago I still use this script. It's called RockGen. And basically if I needed to create an asteroid belt, I could type in RockGen and say I need 100 different rocks, and it makes 100 different rocks for me. It's pretty sweet.
Can you show us the site?
Yes. So the website is called Creative Crash.
We can use those kind of resources?
You can for some things, but keep in mind that you don't learn a whole lot by using those. So I want a majority of your stuff to be created by you, but if you're like, oh, I have just some background stuff, I need just filler, yes. So here's where you can download a whole bunch of stuff, and they have on their site stuff for After Effects, stuff for Final Cut, stuff for Nuke. We have stuff for Maya, Modo, SketchUp, Blender. Was Blender not in there?
No, I don't think I saw it.
No, I don't think I saw it either. Blender has its own community.
Is this all free?
This is all free. Oh, sorry, most of it's free. There are some people that do sell their stuff on here, like they have rigs, and if you stick around in the animation program, we get to animating a full-blown character, which we download from here, okay? Where are the scripts? Scripts. And here's all the scripts that are here. So if I go to modeling right there.
All the stuff that here is, like, if it's posted on like a site like this, is it like open source? Do you have to like credit these people? Like,
You don't have to credit them on here unless there's a specific thing that says, you know, they want credit for it. But typically no, because they're not going to know that you typically would even use it, because if I made a rock, it's not like their signature is anywhere on that rock. Okay. This one is really cool. This is a tread creator. So this guy made a script that allows you to create very quickly a way to animate tank tread, which is, without the script, is very difficult. There's also one, let me click on the guy's name. Nope, that's not the name I want anyway. Stair generator. This guy makes a bunch of generators. They're pretty neat. Davey. So he has a stair generator. So if you were to build a house and you needed to put stairs in there, there you go. What kind of stairs do you want? Do you want straight stairs? Do you want winding stairs? Do you want broken up? Do you want handles? His scripts are actually really neat in how he sets them up. He also has a brick generator, which is like a Lego generator. And he has a whole bunch of stuff in here. I'll see that rock gen one. Rock gen. So there's no pictures of it, I don't believe, but this is from 2000, holy cow mold. But it allows you, like I said, just to make different kinds of rocks. You can make boulders, you can make like quartz, so it's like longer and whatever. It's pretty neat. So another site you can kind of play with and explore on there is that Creative Crash one, all right? Over here on the right of that Mel script line, this is where you're gonna get feedback from the software. So if the software says, hey, you did something wrong, it'll tell you you've done something wrong right there. It'll be in red, or it'll be in gray and you've done everything right, okay? Way at the bottom is your help. So don't neglect this. It says display short help tips. If you're in a tool and you're not sure what to do in that tool, it'll say click on whatever, okay? Or it'll say make sure you have this selected. Over here on the right, we have layers and we have the channel box. Now the layers in 3D work different than the layers in a 2D application. If we're in Photoshop or we're in Illustrator and we have two items on a layer, this one is going to be on top because it's in front. But if I want it to be behind it, I just switch the layers and now it's behind it, right? In 3D, it doesn't matter because in 3D, it actually has like an actual space in 3D. So these layers are only for display. They're only for us to turn stuff off to hide them or to bring stuff back to show it. So imagine like one of those big scenes in Avengers where they have hundreds of things going on. There's no way any computer can handle that. So you can hide most of the stuff, focus on what you're doing, and then just bring back the stuff that you need as you go, okay? This we'll get into in a little bit. And then that's pretty much the interface, okay? Most of the stuff we're gonna do is gonna happen inside here. So what I want you to do is I want you to create an object. So under the create polygon primitives, I want you to create any one of these objects here. All right? So I created an object, and what I want to do now is I want to spin around that object. So on our hotkey sheet, we have this navigation area. The first one says to orbit, which means spin around it. We hold down Alt and we left mouse button, click and drag. Okay? So take a couple seconds to Alt, left mouse button, click and drag, and just get a feel for what this involves. How many people have ever played an instrument? Excellent. Wow, my morning classes, there was like no one. When you play an instrument, they have like scales, right? Or they have chords, or they have these things that you constantly have to repeat over and over and over again. It's the same thing with this. We have to do this stuff over and over and over again to like lock it into our brains. All right, so Alt, left, click and drag, and we can spin around the object. All right. Now, if we wanted to move where the object is located, we hold down Alt and we use the middle mouse. And the scroll wheel, that little wheel on the mouse, is your middle mouse. You just hold that down, and now you can move the object around the scene. Okay? And then we have Alt and right mouse button, and that's our way to zoom in and out. So we hold Alt and right mouse, and we can zoom in and out of our scene. Now you can use the scroll wheel, okay? The scroll wheel just on its own, rolling forward or backwards, will zoom you in or zoom you out. But the problem is it clicks. So you see how it just jumps right inside the ball? I don't want to jump inside the ball. I want to smoothly go in up to it. So if I hold Alt and use the right mouse, I can get to it a little bit smoother. Okay, so I can really get close to that point without jumping past the point. Okay, so I advise never to use a scroll wheel. I want you to get in the habit of using Alt left mouse button to do this rotation, Alt middle to move around, and Alt right to do that. All right, so that's the majority of what we're going to be doing. Those three things right there, once you've kind of mastered those, this whole thing goes like a lot easier. Okay, but again, it's just going to take time to do that. So now let's figure out how we can move this item. So if we look at our hotkey list again, you'll see that there are tools, and one of those tools says move. So if I hit the W key, it pulls up these arrows. Okay? Now get in the habit of using the arrows as your way to move stuff around. Yes, ma'am. So if we click on an object, we hit W, we pull up the move tool, we can move the item up and down, forward and backwards, in and out, or whatever. Okay, and then as we do that, we could also move and spin and do whatever to our scene to get it positioned from a different angle. Okay, now watch up here real quick, because I'm going to show you why you don't want to do moving any other way. Okay, eventually we're going to build a little Lego piece here. So I'm going to just create a cylinder. All right, so you can see this cylinder is right there. Okay, so the cylinder is right in that back right corner. So I'm going to duplicate this. I'm going to pull it over to this side here. There we go. And I'm going to duplicate it and pull it over here. That's good. Pull it over here. Pull it up a little bit. There we go. And so you can see I'm duplicating this and positioning it. And I'm not using the arrows for this so much as I'm grabbing the center beam and positioning it with that center beam. And the only time I use...
multiple at a time?
Yes, you can. So we would grab one side and duplicate it. Yes. Okay. So grabbing this center one, what it does is it moves it parallel to the camera. Okay. So as I spin around, look at my Legos. Look how off they are because I wasn't careful with it. All right. So get in the habit of not doing that. Look at how easy this is to grab it and move it just in the correct direction this way, and then the correct direction that way. Okay. Just by using the arrows. So when we use the move tool, use just those arrows here. Okay? Never grab the center and move that center around because it does bad things. Hopefully I locked that in. All right, now rotation. We hit E for rotation. Okay? So as we rotate, the same thing. Don't grab, there's four, if you look at there's four circles. There's this big one on the outside, and then there's a red, green, and blue one on the inside. Those inside ones are the ones we want to rotate, okay? Not the outside one. So I would rotate the ones on the inside, and that's the safe way to do that. Okay? The outside one does just what the other move tool did, in that it rotates it parallel to the camera. All right? So that would, again, cause some funky behavior to happen. Now we could also, and this is something else we don't want to do, if I don't click on any of those lines and I just click and drag in the middle of this, it also rotates it kind of in some random fashion. And as much as we may want it to be positioned like that, it's not very accurate. Even though, again, it looks kind of accurate here, as we spin around, you can see that it's not accurate. okay? So just to kind of cover rotational stuff, how many degrees are in a circle?
360.
360. So how many degrees are in a quarter of a circle? 90, right? So as we start rotating stuff, if we want to face upward, we make sure that it faces completely upward by coming over here and making sure that these are set to appropriate values. Like this should be set to zeros because that's what they were. If I want them laying down, I would rotate it 90. Okay, and that way it lays down perfectly horizontally and not at some funky angle that's like almost 90.
Now it could be a truck.
Right, now it could be a truck. There we go.
Ooh.
All right, so now the next hotkey, what do you think it is without even looking at your hotkey sheet? So you have W for move, E for rotate, R for scale.
These are like the complete opposite of almost any other program.
Yes. Now, if we look at them, if we look at the pattern, we have Q, which is our selection tool, W is move, E is rotate, R is scale. Do you see where they're at on the keyboard? Right next to each other. So it actually makes it a little bit easier than like Photoshop or Illustrator, which is, you know, completely random, just random numbers. Now the only one, like I've said before with the move tool, we don't want to grab that center one. With the rotate tool, we don't want to grab that other one. The scale tool is the only one I'll grab the center one on. Because I like the proportions of these wheels, I just want to make them bigger, okay? So I grab the center and I make the entire thing bigger, okay? If I were to grab just the red, it stretches it weird. If I grab just the green, it stretches it weird. If I grab the blue, I can control the length, that's fine. But if I want to grab the overall, I move the entire thing. Okay, I grab that whole centerpiece. The other half of your success is just mastering these other three tools. Move, rotate, select, and then being able to rotate stuff around in our scene. Doing this, okay? This is a lot of what we're doing is this kind of thing where I'm moving and rotating or orbiting and zooming and panning to get a better view of what I'm doing. Some people are very insecure about doing that, and so they'll be way back here trying to line this up and trying to put that right on top of it, where if we just took the time and went into it, we could get a pretty good angle and set it right down on top of that, okay? So you have to be a little bit confident and get into the point of, I'm just going to jump in there and move it where I need to move it exactly, all right? We also have to be a little bit OCD about some of our stuff and get things lined up as best we can, okay? In some instances, like, okay, here's my sphere that I made. I want to put this on the grid. So that looks like it's on the grid, okay? Now I know it's actually not on the grid because if I were to spin around and zoom in, I can see that he's actually below the grid. Okay, there's the grid. So I like to be a little bit OCD and put him right on the grid by typing in the exact number that would put him right on that grid, all right? So as we start to work, kind of be a little bit OCD when we can, all right? All right.
So one puts it on there?
Well, one did just because it moves up one unit.
Okay.
Okay. If I were to duplicate this and I wanted this one to be on top of that one, it would actually be 2 units up higher. So it would be 3. Yes, sir.
Does mine have like physics you can like turn on to animate a scene and stuff?
Yes. It has Bullet is one of its big physics engines for doing solid object stuff. But then we also have Encloth, we also have particle systems, we have fluids, hair, what was that?
Will you show us?
Not today.
Aw.
I can show you an example, we can't do one together. All right, I'll show you something really quick that I did for one of my other scenes.
Like gravity on those balls, they would all fall together and like
Yeah.
crazy stuff.
All right, we'll do that real quick. All right, so I'm just going to position him now here. Now you see I set this cube to 1 and it doesn't lay flat because I want that to be at 0.5. There we go. So we'll just, there's a bunch there.
What button are you clicking to duplicate that?
It's Shift D. After I've duplicated it once, I can move it. And it'll do that. There we go. There we go. All right, so now I have a bunch of stuff that I can break. You guys are a fun class. You want me to break stuff. All right, so I'm going to turn on Bullet. Now, Maya has a bunch of plugins that are not displayed. Maya is a big consumption of resources. So these are all the things that it doesn't load by default. So one of them, the one I'm going to use, I need to turn back on, which is bullet. I'm going to switch to this menu. I'm going to grab all these things. I'm going to go to bullet. Wonderful. There we go. And then I'm going to take the ground, and I'm going to make sure that this is a colliding object. And then I'm going to create another object.
Do you have to like create a camera and stuff too?
The camera is already created. So we're actually in a camera right now. Typically, I create an extra camera so I don't animate the camera that I would like to work in. All right. Obviously, a little bit of setup, but it'll be worth it once it's done. Bolt solver. Set that to there. Box, yes. 0. Yes. All right, that should be good. All right. So now, if I just hit the play button, you can see that everything just kind of falls. These aren't falling right now because they're actually just stacked perfectly on top of each other, but the sphere is falling, okay? And it just fell and hit the ground. So now comes the fun part where we get to throw the sphere at the stuff. So I'm going to say initial velocity, you're going to go like -20 in the x direction. So there it comes. That was a horrible throw. Let me try it again. -50. We'll give it a little bit of y too, just so it kind of goes up a little bit. There we go. Haha, just hits the top. All right, so now I'll go a little bit.
If you do it at like a faster speed, that means it'll
fall.
Yeah,
It'll fall
like you
faster?
could probably add like mass and like.
Right. Right now, they're both the same mass. They're both the same weight. So as it hits it, they're kind of balancing each other out. So that was with the default mass, barely hits it. So now let's go in here to this and crank the mass up to like 100.
Oh.
And it's just going to destroy it. It should just fly right through it.
Awesome.
Now we actually have a dynamics class. And in the dynamics class we take, and this is like the first project, get used to dynamics, figure out how it works. The second project is we take a building and we destroy it. We shatter the building so that it actually like falls into pieces. And then we add smoke to it and we add fire to the ball coming in.
That class.
Yeah, it's pretty fun. Okay, so there's lots of stuff that you can do inside here. Maya is like crazy open. Like when they showed Hulk's clothes tearing, you could do that stuff right inside Maya. You can have stuff tear.
You know what they used for that?
I think they used NCloth because I was watching some stuff about this guy who was showing here's how you do NCloth for movies, or how you use cloth for movies, and he was using NCloth for the entire thing. So it was pretty neat. All right, so what I want you to do now is, I'm just going to delete that, is we have the move, rotate, and scale tools. Okay, we have our ability to spin around our scene. We know what not to do when we're making a Lego type shape. So I want you to make a Lego type shape, and your duplicating hotkey is on here. It's Control D, and that's your duplicating hotkey. So we need to close Maya and then back them up. And the only way it allows us to back them up is when we close Maya down, it writes them out to the hard drive. Okay? So once your Maya is closed, you can go back to the start menu, go back to computer, and then go back to the P drive, and you'll see that 2016 folder. So you're going to find that 2016 folder, and you're just going to right click and cut it. And then go into your folder in the 2510, and then just paste it right there. Okay, so I pasted my 2016 folder right inside my folder. So when we come in next class, next Tuesday, we'll do the opposite. We'll delete the old folder if it's still there, and we'll copy our preferences into that spot. That way we have a copy of our preferences that we can work off of. Okay? Cool.
Every time we change it, we have to redo that?
Correct. All right. So typically I like to do it every day. That way we're always working off of the latest preferences and things won't happen that are bad.